All right, so I think we're ready, Sam. Let's just
Great.
go ahead and get it done. All right. Let me do speaker view. Perfect. All righty. All right, welcome everybody. So again, my name is Carlos, founder of the Young Sharks. If you haven't met me in person already, I believe I've met most of you guys in here on the Zoom. Sam, I'm very thankful that you joined us today. So I believe, yeah, so you work with Nicole. Nicole told you about our group. You actually did a poem that I need to definitely get everybody to watch it. Is one of the best things I've ever seen somebody do for the Young Sharks, really creative. Also, you're a businessman. I'm sure we'll get into all those details today, but usually I like starting the podcast just introducing ourselves, going over our story and whatnot. So I'm gonna pass on the mic to you, Sam. Again, thank you so much, and we'll get it going.
Sounds great. Thank you for having me. And the poem that you're talking about, I think maybe we should drop a link to the webinar with that at the end, because I think that's something that people could check out for sure. But I'll tell you guys my backstory. I'm very excited to be here. I think this is a great group, a lot of inspiring people that I've met, just a few events that I've been to. My background, I started my first company called Hoop Brothers, which is a basketball company that I grew from $0 to $1 million in revenue over the course of 10 years. I started Hoop Brothers when I was 18 years old, and the goal of Hoop Brothers was to produce videos to help high school basketball players get scholarships for college. It wasn't something that I was taking very seriously as a business in the beginning. It was just to help my brother, but I realized pretty early on that there was a need for that. And so I started building the infrastructure around hiring videographers in different cities all throughout the United States, hiring editors digitally. We had a staff, we had an office here in Orlando before COVID. And just over the years, learned everything in the business. I had to be every single role. I had to be the admin. I had to be the videographer. I had to be the editor. I had to be the marketing, the sales, the HR, the finance, everything in the company I managed at one point or another. Eventually hired people to replace myself in each role. Today, I just hired a CEO last year to run the entire business of Hoop Brothers. I've been focusing more on business consulting. In 2019, I opened Divergent University, which is a alternative to college. It's a one-year program that we launched, and we're launching a full curriculum on this fall for students who are trying to take an idea and turn it into a business. So I've coached over 100 entrepreneurs, a lot of young entrepreneurs, specifically students that I've worked with, and helped them grow businesses as well. Notable example of that, Free the Roots is a soap company I've worked with. They went from $0 to $1 million in revenue. They sell soap online. They have 100,000 followers on Instagram. You can follow them, Free the Roots. I gave a TEDx talk in 2019. I published a workbook in 2020. So I've done a lot in the last couple of years. Now that Hoop Brothers is fully off my plate, I'm still a 90% owner, but I focus mostly on speaking, business consulting, and then building out curriculum for Divergent University. So that's kind of my brief overview of my background.
Nice. Yeah, so you definitely have a full resume that all of us can learn something from, which is why I invited you to the podcast, because I think it'll definitely be really interesting to dive a little bit deeper and just see, exactly what you learned throughout your journey. So, all right, so you founded the basketball company, Hoop Brothers. Tell us a little bit more about how did you realize that could become a business? Because usually a lot of businesses, especially the ones that scale, a lot of the times it starts out with an accident or an idea or just a passion. Like, hey, I just want to do this. Like me with the Young Sharks, I just want to bring a couple friends together, and then I got the idea. One thing led to another. Now we're here. So how was that journey forward? How did you realize that could be a business?
Yeah, it was the first big event that I attended really opened my eyes that it could be a business. So before that, I was just filming basketball games for my brother, filming for some of his teammates, producing videos for like $50 here or $50 there. It wasn't something that I thought could scale into a larger company. But the first event that I partnered with, I was actually working at Sears Outlet at the time. I was 18 years old, 19 years old, somewhere around there. Working full-time at Sears Outlet, in school full-time. So still trying to start a business on top of that. And I had to get a weekend off for this event. And so I told my manager, hey, I need to take these 2 days off so that I can film this. And they basically said, you can't because you're a salesperson. You have to be here on the weekend. And I told them, I'm going to call out if you don't allow me to do this. And they respected that because I built a good relationship with them. So they allowed me to have that time, went to this event. And at the event, there was probably about 200 players and 30 of them bought videos. And I made more that day than I did in the last 2 months at Sears. So I realized, oh, wow, I don't need to be spending all this time at a retail sales job when I could be making money on the weekends filming basketball games. And so that's what started the process of focusing on that. Within 3 months of then, I quit my job and I was focusing on Hoop Brothers full time.
Nice. Okay, so when you started monetizing it, what were some of the first things that you started doing? Like, okay, initially it was just you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who was your very first employee, or partner person that came in and did some help?
So I hired a lot of friends in the beginning as videographers, which I realized wasn't a great idea. I had a friend that was filming a game at one point. I'm going back through his tape and I just see the camera drop and he fell asleep while he was filming for 6 or 7 minutes. And I'm like, dude, if you would at least press pause to not let me see that. So working with friends was difficult. I didn't get the level of respect that I did from hiring others. So I realized that might not be the best route, at least in the beginning. But my first official employee, I hired W9 contractors often for video for events and then some editors. My first official employee was an administrative assistant who I actually helped grow throughout the company, and she's now the CEO. So she went from admin to HR manager to recruiting director to sales to managing the budgets, becoming the COO. She kind of saved the company, to be honest, during the pandemic. And I gave her equity in the company. And then last year promoted her to CEO, and she's now running the whole company. So the first person that I actually hire is now the CEO 6 years later. Just kind of turned out that way. But credit to her. I mean, she always brought more than she was asked and consistently gave her promotions for that.
Wow. I'm curious as to, I'm growing this business myself, and honestly, I was actually shocked to see how hard it can actually be. We always think oh, if I could just find one thing that sells and I'll just scale it to the moon. Well, scaling is not that simple. You need SOPs, which are, systems and processes. You need contracts. You need ways of monitoring quality and all that. So my question is how did you pick up those skills? How did you learn to be a manager, a businessman, and all that?
I think trial and error. Growing up, I moved a lot as a kid, so I had to be a leader in my house. My parents split up when I was 9. I have 2 younger brothers, older sister. Basically, I had to be the man of the house at 7 to 9 years old. So I became a natural leader in that. I never went to the same school for more than 2 or 3 years in a row. My family moved about a dozen times. So I think I developed a lot of leadership skills in my family because I had to. And that's kind of the foundation I had playing basketball. Obviously, I was a team captain in basketball growing up. So I think natural leadership skills come from that. But trial and error and failure is really what taught me how to do that. And I'll give one example to make it more tangible. The biggest challenge that I found when building Hoop Brothers was how do I go from Orlando to a national company? And I had a mentor of mine that I was asking, how do I close this national partnership? Because I don't know how to hire videographers in different cities. And she was basically just do it. You have to try. What have you tried so far? I haven't tried anything. Well, obviously you're not going to succeed if you don't try anything. So that was kind of just a duh. And then I started attempting to hire videographers. I Googled it. How do I hire videographers? Posted an ad on Craigslist. And for the first year working with several national partners, we failed a lot. We probably got about 30 to 50% of events that there was a problem at. because a videographer didn't have batteries or didn't have an SD card or didn't have enough footage to make it through the event or didn't went to the wrong location or only had a camera, not a video camera, like simple things that you would think would make sense. So we had to create this detailed interview process. And luckily we had informed our partners, this is new for us. This isn't something that we've done before. So there might be some mistakes early on. We were giving them a good revenue split of what we were making. So that worked out, but a lot of it was just trying, failing, having to adjust and fixing it as we go. I think part of it is listening and figuring out what's the problem, to identify that and then shifting it. But that would be my things through practice and failure.
Did you have any mentors throughout that journey?
Several, none that were extremely consistent. My mom was always an entrepreneur, so she was the first person who taught me how to build a website, how to start a company, and believe in the fact that I could do that even at 18 years old. So I think that was a big boost for me. But I had several business coaches I worked with while I was in school. I dropped out of UCF because I got my associate's degree at Valencia. Business was already doing well. So when I went to UCF, I was only taking one class at a time and doing that to take advantage of the resources on campus. So I met a ton of professors and business coaches through UCF, and then I've met others along the way. And I think coaching is extremely valuable because it allows people to see things that from a lens they haven't seen. As a business coach, I'm a business consultant now, and the things that I've been able to see across dozens of companies, you start to see patterns and you can save someone years of time. Like it took me 10 years to build $1 million in revenue. It could take somebody else 3 or 2 or 1 by not having to go through those same mistakes.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, me myself, I've invested thousands into mentorships, programs, courses, because at the end of the day, the best investment, and Warren Buffett says this, I'm sure you would agree, like the best investment you can always make is into yourself. Because if you don't have the right mindset, it's just going to be really hard. Fortunately for me, I've always had the mindset of like keeping an open mind and knowing that I don't know everything, even though sometimes my personality can get in the way of that. But at the end of the day, I do listen, and I am open to change. I'm open to new ideas. So by working with mentors, it's helped me see the other side and to learn things that I didn't know, and honestly things that I would probably never figure out by myself. Like sometimes you just need people to scale. Like you just need people to work, people to tell you stuff, people to be on the front lines. Like you just need information. So man, that's really powerful, really interesting. I'm actually curious now. How was the pandemic for you guys? You said, your current CEO helped you get through that. How did you go through it? Just let us know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, honestly, the pandemic was one of the most humbling experiences, if not the most humbling experience of my life. Because at the start of 2020, I felt like I had made it, whatever that means. I had just given a TED talk. Hoop Brothers was now mostly fully hands-off, and Divergent U was in person. We were starting to do accelerator programs. We had just completed our second business accelerator that we had launched. So at that point, I had just coached a dozen companies. My business is doing well. Just gave my TED talk, published a workbook. I'm feeling like I'm on top of the world. And then in March, every event got shut down. And so Hoop Brothers lost easily $100,000 in revenue in a couple months. We had to let go pretty much our entire team because we just didn't have any role. And it was really difficult because we had just promised them new contracts for the next 6 months and had to sit down with every single one of these people I have invested into, people I love, and just tell them, hey, we've got to let you go one by one. And I remember Jess at the time looking at me and being like, are we going out of business? And it felt like that. It really did. And for about 6 months, there was really no light at the end of the tunnel. It was just trying to find ways. I mean, how do you turn a basketball company into something digital when you can't help a player get recruited if they can't get on the court because they're not allowed to get on the court because live events are shut down? So that was happening. Meanwhile, Divergent U was meant to be in person. I started it as an in-person program, and then we're transitioning that online and trying to navigate that. So I was able to focus on Divergent U, while Jess, my business partner, focused on Boot Brothers. We opened up a couple different new revenue streams with digital video, but it really didn't do much. It was honestly the government loan that saved us at the last minute, where we literally were on the phone with a bankruptcy attorney talking about potentially going out of business. And then being able to get through that to the fall, we had our biggest season we've ever had. So it was just the patience to get through it. And that having people around me that I could trust to manage different things allowed us to survive. But I wouldn't say that we were like a success story of the pandemic. I think we were a survival story of the pandemic.
Well, I mean, you said you had the biggest season after, right?
Yeah.
So what was the switch there? What happened?
I think that was probably demand of the market, because players needed to be at events so much more than they had for the last 6 months, that all the events we were partnered with sold out. And so it was just, the numbers were way higher than they normally were. Though we have maintained a lot of that since. So I don't know if that was something in our new partnerships that we formed, and there's some new strategy we've introduced, but honestly, I think a lot of it was circumstance.
Got it. Alrighty. So I definitely have more things to talk about, but I want to address some of the questions that people are asking as well. So we had a question from Stephanie, which says, when the company starts making money, how and when do you start paying yourself? So I guess it's a two-part question. I think that's a good topic that a lot of us, especially being young entrepreneurs, definitely struggle with or are curious, like, are we paying too much? Are we paying ourselves nothing? What are your thoughts on, paying yourself at the beginning of your business?
That's so nuanced and dependent on the person. It depends on your income otherwise. Like, if someone's in a position where their income's being supported, then that's different than if they have a full-time job that they have to focus on, or a part-time job. So it really depends on when they can make that leap. There's a lot of risk tolerance involved. So if someone's has a higher tolerance for risk, then they can make that leap a little sooner. If they want to make sure that they have everything in a row, it takes a little bit more time. So there's not exactly a right answer on that. But once the income coming into the business can replace the full-time income, I think if you have that 40 hours, 50 hours a week that you can take off of your plate, it's really weighing out, can I replace that consistently with my business? And if so, I think that's the time to take the leap. But it's so situational, and it really depends on the company. It depends on, some companies are seasonal. It depends on what else they have as an income stream and where their support's coming from. So it's, I would say, too nuanced to give an exact answer that fits for everybody. But generally, when you have enough income that you can comfortably take that from the business without hurting the business, and that allows you to step away from what else you're doing.
Yeah. I definitely think it's definitely very situational, because usually when we start a business, we're working on something else. Some people make more on their part-time or make a little less. So it's definitely, I agree, it's definitely situational. I'm sure people are curious, like, how early in, so, you started monetizing the company. How early did you start paying yourself at least $1? Like, started paying yourself something?
So I think the first 8 months, I probably didn't. It was mostly investing back in the company, buying new cameras. We didn't have a whole lot of expenses though. And it was a service business. So we don't have a location. We were just buying video cameras to go film at locations, eventually hiring videographers who already had cameras. So that takes off an expense. And then editing software to edit, having software online to upload. There was not a lot of overhead. But those first 8 months, I invested everything back into the company: marketing materials, business cards, logo, website. Again, I started it as a side hustle. I wasn't thinking about it as an official company. So I didn't even get the LLC until probably after the first 8 months or so. But it was around that time where I started making $2,000 to $3,000 a weekend at an event, that it didn't make sense for me to go back to my job, because I would be making so much less for my time, that it just didn't make sense. So I think for me, I found a niche pretty quickly that opened a door that it was too obvious not to step away at that point.
Yeah. I think at least it happened somewhat similar to me, in that there was a point where I knew my business needed my time more than like the money, right? Like it just needed me to be more present. And it also came to like, like an inflection point where it was like, you know, there's an opportunity cost now if I am no longer present. So the more I spend on a full-time, part-time job outside of my business, the more my business suffers. So I just need to put more and more time into this, and I need to survive. I need to pay bills. So at the end of the day, I do need to start paying myself some over some other investments that could be beneficial. I'm in that point right now. It's like, you know what? I wish I could invest 100% of everything back into the business, but right now the business needs me. Like it definitely needs me to oversee everything going on. So I need to pay myself something.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately the purpose is we're trying to build companies that create wealth for us. So I think it's definitely something to prioritize. I know there's some. I think there's a book called Profit First, if I'm not mistaken. Might be the wrong title, but basically talks about setting aside profit in your budget before anything else. Otherwise, it kind of gets left. I have another point on that though that is a little different, but the transition out of a job into the business, also the transition out of working in my business to then working on the business, I think is a big shift for a lot of people. And I think I made that shift too late. So I was doing a lot of the editing for videos. I was filming a lot. I was doing so much of the day-to-day operations after we'd already closed a national partnership, where I felt guilty working on the bigger tasks because I wanted to work with my team on some of the smaller tasks. And that was worse for everybody because I wasn't able to close some of the larger partnerships. I was focusing on editing a video instead of there's accounts out there that I could be closing that are six-figure accounts. And because I didn't do that, those accounts closed with other partners. At the time, we were the first to market at that scale to be able to videotape events all over the country for basketball. And had we acted sooner, we could have been a $10 million company. And so I slowed down and was working too much in the day-to-day when I should have hired somebody to focus on editing videos more, and I could step out and just laser focus on strategic partnerships. So I think there's times in the business to think about when to level up as well. That is important to consider. Like your job as a CEO, our job as a CEO is to focus on the biggest item that can advance things the most.
When you were saying those things, I feel like you and I have spoken a few times, but we're not like friends. Like we're getting to know each other. But when you said that, like you don't know anything about me yet, right?
Mm.
And when you said that, I'm like, that's so on point because I had that same moment not that long ago where it was like, well, I enjoy going to the events. I enjoy working with my clients. I enjoy doing these things. I enjoy a lot of the things that unfortunately don't make money in the company. What actually makes money is sales, is finding new prospects, opening accounts, So I had to talk to myself and be like, well, what life do I really want? Do I want to be a small business owner that enjoys showing up every single day to the store and attending to the customers, or do I want a company that employs a lot of people and it's multi-city, maybe even multi-country? So that's what I want. So I need to work towards that. So slowly I've tried to get a little bit away from the things that I loved at the beginning, but honestly just don't make money. That someone can do that job more efficient and you can focus on something else that does take you to the next level. I think that's some great advice for people, because sometimes we are not putting the time into like cold calling, being out in networking events, being trying to figure out how to run ads, how to promote your business, which those are the activities that, in my opinion, and maybe you disagree or agree, will actually take your business to the next level. So sometimes we're just spending time looking over our books or figuring out what email I'm going to send her, stuff that is just not top line.
I think there's two main systems, and you kind of spoke to that, that every business needs in order to be automated. And that's a sales system. So sales being closed without the need for time, whether that's advertising, whether that's hiring a sales team, whether that's partnering with live events and sending out reps to those live events, with some kind of system that consistently closes sales without the need of the founder being the one to close every single sale. Creating that system, and then the second, a fulfillment system, so that everything that is sold can be fulfilled without the need of the founder's time as well. If you can accomplish building both of those things, and that's, I would say, more of the mindset of working on the business versus working in it. If you're working in the business, you have to make every sale, you have to fulfill every order. But when you're working on the business, you're really trying to accomplish those two things. Create a system for sales that operates independently of your time. Create a system for fulfillment of those sales that operates independently of your time. If you can accomplish both of those things, you have a profitable company. So that's where, that's one of the things that I help people do as a business consultant, is create those two systems so that they can get out of the day-to-day and focus on scaling.
Yeah, absolutely. The best thing that ever happened to me was when I hired my two salespeople that I have right now, and we're able to basically get new people into the Young Sharks without me having to take calls, follow up, do any of that, because now all of my time is free for something else. So definitely. And if anybody has any questions along those topics, I think building a sales system and systems and processes and stuff like that is definitely super important. So don't miss the opportunity, guys, to ask a specific question on how to do that, or if you want some advice on that. But moving on, so what would you say is the journey from start to scale? What would you say are like the 4 or 5 things, like, hey, in the first few months you try to do this, then you try to do that, then this happens, and then that happens, and then you get to the end? If you could put it into a simple timeline.
Yeah, I'm trying to like recount the whole journey, because it's like 10 years of growth. So I think there is a framework that I've used in the past to talk about this, though, which is basically like 5 phases of entrepreneurship. So the first phase is the idea phase, and that's before you launch. That's, I have an idea, I want to do something, but I haven't made it official yet. So you're ideating around that. The second phase for me was a side hustle. So it was attempting, it's dabbling. Before you go full-time, go all in on a business, it's good to experiment a little bit, whether that's a product or a service. Do something that's an MVP, which is minimum viable product. Something that you can do small. How can you do this smaller? That would be the side hustle phase. And then going from a side hustle to a full-time solopreneur, I would say, was the next transition. So going from doing this on the weekends to then quitting my job, focusing on it full time. I think some of that's mindset, and it's just making the leap. And for me, again, it wasn't as difficult because the money was there. Like, it wasn't like I was taking a risk. The risk would have been staying at my job, because I was making less than if I would have been with my company. So that was an easier shift. The hardest shift, I think, is from self-employed entrepreneur to then the next stage up, which is business operator. And that's where you let go a lot and you have a team managing a lot of those pieces. And so that's a big mindset shift from, when a problem comes up, I'm going to solve it, versus when a problem comes up, I'm going to invest into someone else to solve it. And I think that changes a lot as an entrepreneur, because now you're no longer micromanaging everything. You're empowering other leaders to handle the pieces of it that you can let go. And so that shift from solopreneur to business operator, I think that's where I saw the biggest growth, the company saw the biggest growth. And then the last phase of that is from operator to asset owner. So that means I'm fully hands off. I'm no longer operating the company. Business is running itself. I promoted my COO to CEO. And now the company is functioning completely independently of my time. So that's the short version. I don't know if that fully answers your question, but that's kind of the route that I took. And I think at each hurdle, it's a new mindset shift you have to make. And there's trust you have to have in others, and in yourself, especially in those early stages, to say, I'm actually going to do this. But if you take those steps, then it's not as daunting. You're not going straight to operating a business with a bunch of employees. You can start small and then grow piece by piece based on how the market responds.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, that definitely answers my question. So you mentioned the word MVP. That's actually the second time I hear that. And the first time I heard that, it literally changed my entire mindset. So would you mind explaining what is the MVP? Why is it so significant to know that concept?
I have a painful story that'll help that land. So MVP is the minimum viable product, and basically what that means is you want to create the most cost-effective, simple version of your offer. A lot of times, as an entrepreneur, we have a vast amount of ideas. We want to create something that has all these intricacies to it, versus starting with something. What's the meat of this? What's the smallest thing in this that would actually solve the problem? And for me, the mistake that I made was when Hoop Brothers started gaining traction as a video service. We had made a lot of money and had a lot of money saved up for investing into the next stage of growth. And for me, I wanted to create a platform on Hoop Brothers where players had a profile, college coaches had a profile, there were events listed, players could upload video, there was interaction, there was search features. And it was a pretty complicated website that we didn't really build an MVP for. We wanted to build the whole thing. And so there wasn't a clear price point on that, because every time we added something new, they had to add a new piece to it. So it ended up costing about $50,000 to program out this whole website. And because we didn't build a smaller version of it, even with $50,000 invested, we weren't able to get to the finish line. And we had a clunky version of it that didn't do what we needed it to do, didn't really resonate with the target audience. We struggled to sell it. We struggled to optimize for it on the marketing side, because I wasn't thinking about running ads, and I was just thinking about building a cool platform. And so by the end of that, we pretty much lost $50,000, though we still used it a little bit. It just never was what we wanted it to be. And had I invested a lot less and built a smaller offer and listened to the audience more, as opposed to just building what was in my head and trying to get to this finish line of this massive product, we probably would have done a lot better. So I would recommend that anybody, especially if you're investing into development, the development costs can get extremely high. Start small and then build from there, because otherwise you're going to waste a lot of time, money, could lose a lot in that. And that's a story that kind of speaks to that.
Yeah, I have my own story with the MVP. So the person that told me about it is he's like a financial wealth manager, and he was just a good friend of mine. And I was running some ideas like, hey, I want to do this with the young sharks. I want to do that. I want to do this. Like I had a whole big company with 50,000 employees in my head, and I was like making nothing. So, you know, I was trying to sell at the time like a pretty complex ad package, and I was struggling to get it going. And the reason why is because since it was so complex, like, yeah, I added a lot of value to the people that bought it, but there were so many things that I needed to do with it and deliverables that my time was always spent on working on that one client, but I was charging them very, very little. So there was just like no way for me to scale that. There was no way for me to have enough time to do all the prospecting that I did in order to sell that more complex of a package and still work with my clients and still do the events and still do this and still do that. So my MVP actually was to just turn my events that I was doing into a subscription. So instead of just charging per one event, I was like, well, why don't we just charge one subscription the same price and, you know, try to scale that and focus just on that. So right now, I'm not even taking on any more ad clients. You know, even if someone comes with me right now and is like, hey, Carlos, I got $4,000 for you to run my ads for the next month. I'm going to say no, because I need to focus on one thing. So definitely, I think the MVP, knowing what is the easiest thing that you can sell right now, that you can easily deliver on, just easily sell it, and it's just very easy for you to just get that going and then work on the next idea and the next idea. That definitely changed my mindset, because I'm one of those people that is just like, I'm all in and I'm going to, come up with a website that has all the bells and whistles and I want it this way. And if it's not this way, then I don't want it. And I've had to change because, yeah, sometimes you invest so much time and money into something and then you're like, oh crap, that was actually a bad idea. Prove the concept first. Yeah.
Yeah, and to rebound off of that, I think the decision I made at the end of last year was similar in that I'm focusing now, where I had Divergent U functioning, I had Hoop Brothers up and running, my personal brand. I'm an investor in another company as well, so I have all of these projects that I'm kind of juggling. And at the end of last year, I realized I can't do everything, which is why I decided to step down as CEO of my first company, Hoop Brothers, and focus full-time on Divergent U business consulting and more of my personal brand, because I was juggling too much. And I realized I can't do everything. I'm spread too thin. I have to focus. And I think, honestly, it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made, which is hard when it's a company that I founded and had for 10 years to step down. There's a part of that that's like my identity's tied to it. So there's not just the practical, but like the ego of like, I want to run this, or this is mine, and being able to step back from that, I think has been a really good decision, both for me mentally to be able to focus and for the company. There's actually been growth since I've stepped down, which just shows, I've been able to build a team that can keep growing even without me. And so that's just validating for me to see, oh, even when I step away, the company can continue to see growth. That's been very fulfilling, I would say.
Yeah, and I think Ray Dalio is he says something like that. Like, he talks a lot about the journeys, and then he's like, there comes a time when that's the part of their journey, which is passing on what and letting Leslie just said, let the bird fly, and so I think that's probably your next part of the journey for you with Hoop Brothers, is just letting it see if it makes it on its own and if it keeps growing beyond you, right? That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So, okay, I want to talk a little bit about risk, because a lot of us here are entrepreneurs, and I think just understanding risk is important. Some of us are a little bit more risk averse. Other of us are, bigger risk takers. How do you say is your tolerance towards risk?
I'm a very big risk taker, I would say. I've never played it safe. And that has been to my detriment at times. I think going into the pandemic, because I was overly not secure. I didn't have a whole lot of, I didn't have a big enough safety net for that. And then, when the pandemic hit, we lost pretty much everything and nearly fell into bankruptcy. So we were able to build that back. But I think I might lean a little too heavily on risk at times. And that actually taught me that sometimes I need to be more diligent and patient in the risks that I take, versus just jumping at every opportunity. But I think there's people who are on the other side of that, where they don't take any risk and they keep everything safe. And I think that there's a beauty to that, but I also think it's the high risk, high reward mindset. And I think the longevity of risk, if you're building a company for yourself, you have a larger opportunity to build an asset that can grow without you. So from a generational wealth, from a retirement standpoint, having something that is continuing to generate income for you, that you can be hands off with. There's other ways to do that than building a company, but I think having an asset that's paying you consistently, and taking the risk to build that is less of a risk than not having that at all, because then you don't have that passive income stream. You don't have something that can build wealth in the background. So it's hard to say what's the right path. I think everybody's risk tolerance is different.
Right. Yeah, definitely everybody is different. My personal thoughts on that is like, at least I am a very risky person. Like, I will put everything on the line. And I've always said it like, this is my time, my age for me to do this. Like, I can rebound, I can go get a job any day now. I can work in anything. What I can't do is build a business when I am, well, I mean, technically I could when I'm 60 years old, you know, like Colonel Sanders. But most people, like you're for most people, the right time in my opinion, the right time is if you're young, take advantage of that, use your age to your advantage, and just go all in. That's my opinion. You know, I don't advise people to do the riskiest things, like, you know, be cautious. But if you do have a company and a business and you believe in it and you want to make it, why not, you know, go all the way in? The reason I was asking about risk is there's a lot of times where investments need to be made, you know, like, you know, investing into mentorship, investing into a consultant. People don't understand the value of a consultant. There's a lot of times you need to make investments that don't give you a return on your investment that you can track anyways. So do you have any tips on, you know, how do you go about making a decision of like, I need to invest money, you know, how do you cope with that?
I think that's where when you hit a wall, where you don't know how to overcome the challenge. I think the best investment you can make the least risky investment you can make is investment into yourself. Because despite everything that happened in the pandemic, I had the skills to then rebuild. So even though we basically lost everything at that point, it took a few months to get back to where we were versus the 10 years or 8 years it took to get there. And that's because I had invested into myself and developing my skills to be able to do that, to know how to build a company in that way. It's different if you have the skill set. So I think investing into yourself is when you run into a block or a wall that you can't overcome. Other people have overcome that block before. So I think a lot of times we get stuck in our head and think, I don't know how to solve this. I don't know. And we're not even realizing that we have a blinder up on something that someone else could pull away and say, look, have you seen this opportunity? And you go, oh, wow, I didn't even know that was there, because we haven't had the life experience or the skills to even experience that, whatever that opportunity might be, to even know it exists. So I think part of the best investment you can make is in developing yourself and developing your skills, specific mentors who've done it before. That gives you the opportunity to take from that knowledge without having to invest the time. Like, you're going to learn it either way. Do you want to learn it over the course of 5 or 10 years, or do you want to learn it with the investment of money to a coach that can help you, who's already done it, and give you some of those lessons so that you don't have to go through the failures to learn them, so to speak. So I think that, I don't remember your question, but I think just from investing into yourself standpoint, I think it's the least risky investment you can make, because once you have those skills, those can translate forever and you can do it over and over and over again.
Absolutely. So while we're on this topic of coaching, investments, and all the good stuff, I think it's a good time for me to, you know, announce something really big. It'll be the first time I actually do something like this. And, you know, to you guys that are here and waiting for this, I'm really thankful. So actually, as it turns out, Sam and I have been really talking on the back end towards seeing if we can bring something new to the young sharks, something that I know has definitely been missing, which is the education part of it. Is like the most requested thing that we get is like, hey, we need education into the young sharks. So what are we gonna do to help fix that? So for one, I'm definitely looking to be doing more workshops, to be doing a lot more events that are educational included already within the membership. But the big announcement is that Sam already has the university, right? And, you know, we'll let you speak a little bit more about it and some of the people that you've helped. So what we're doing is we're actually going to partner up. So I don't really take on partners, like, honestly, ever. So for me to do a partnership, it really does mean a lot, because I don't take those lightly. I'm very, very cautious when it comes to putting my brand next to someone else's. So the thing is, Sam has done it before. He's at a level that is right above where most of us are in and want to get. And he knows he has the skills and the know-how of how to cross that line. So by partnering with Sam and diverging you, we're going to be doing a new program where we're going to be helping certain individuals that want to definitely scale and accelerate. It's going to be called Business Accelerator. And we're going to be teaching you guys how to, you were talking earlier, how to build a sales system, how to sell, how to market, how to do all this mindset stuff. So that is a big announcement. We're officially partnered. This is already in the works. There's a lot of things on the back end that we're really excited that are coming in. Sam, tell us a little bit more about Diverting You. What's your idea with that? What have you been able to do with it? And explain a little bit more of it.
Yeah, absolutely. First, just excited for this partnership, and similar to what you said, we're not opening partnerships with just anybody. I think when I went to the first Young Sharks event, I've been to 3 or 4 now, and I did a workshop a while back, about a month ago. Just learning all the people, meeting people through the Young Sharks. I just realized that this is an organization that gets it. And there's a lot of people who want to develop and grow and network, and collaboration is the way to do that. And so I think that the way that you've built Young Sharks, I met several of the other board members and members. It's been an amazing opportunity. So I'm really excited to announce this as well, and for this partnership. To speak to the experience on Diverging You, and then specifically what we're going to do with the Young Sharks. So we've now done 8 business leadership accelerators over the past 4 years. I've worked with over 50 entrepreneurs and operators and managers building that program as a business leadership program. Of those 50 graduates, more than 50% of them have gone on to go from not owning a business to starting a business and being a full-time entrepreneur within 6 months. We've had several founders go from 0 to 6 figures, even 0 to 7 figures. One of them being Free the Roots, I mentioned earlier. You can look them up on Instagram. It's just Free the Roots. They're a natural soap company. They went from 0 to 100,000 followers on Instagram. They just did 7 figures in revenue last year. And they built using a lot of the models that I teach at Diverging You, which is really purpose-based, value-driven principles around leadership that can apply to building a community, that can apply to sales. So whether you're building a company or whether you're leading a team, the program is going to be a great fit for you. And what we've developed specifically for the Young Sharks is an 8-week leadership development program. And so all these events will happen in person. We're going to be doing an hour-long workshop where you'll meet with a group of about 15 or less people to be going through each of these concepts in a more mastermind discussion-based setting, as opposed to just a passive online course that you could consume. So this gives you the opportunity to meet with people, connect with people, ask questions, brainstorm. And the topics we're covering are leadership. We'll have a workshop. The first workshop is leading from within. We have a workshop called the Map to Emotional Awareness, which is really about emotional intelligence and understanding how to have difficult conversations. The third one is 10 secrets to effective boundaries. So a lot of people setting boundaries, not just in their business, but with their time. The more valuable your time becomes, the better you have to get at setting boundaries for your time. Time management, and a whole nother workshop that we're going to break down how to look at time from an executive perspective. Then we get into really the money-making classes. We have the 0 to $1 million business blueprint, where we're going to go through a series of questions that if you answer all of those questions, you'll be able to build a company that's worth $1 million. And it's really a simple roadmap that you can follow, and just gives you what you need to be thinking about to be able to build that. Then you're going to be doing the digital marketing necessities. Carlos, you're going to be running that workshop. Then we have a 100x sales training. And so that's going to be some very specific unlocks to go from selling one-to-one to one-to-many, and how you can open the door for bigger opportunities using that. Last workshop is Divergent Management System, how to build a team around you. And then that will end with the events that we're doing with the Young Sharks. I don't know if, Carlos, you want to announce that and how that will work. But at the end of the program, you get a certificate and then opportunity to speak. But I'll pass it back to you for that.
Yeah. So honestly, I think, there's just a lot of things that I personally just benefited just from learning from someone else. And I can tell you guys from my own experience that this is no bullshit, and don't mind my words. Like, there are certain things in a business that are honestly really hard. That unless you actually get that help to figure it out, it's just really hard. Like I am actively, like I just had a meeting today. Casey is from the sales team. We just had a meeting today where like I am doing some major changes. And the reason why is because like I still need to really figure that stuff out if I want to scale beyond just Orlando. So my point is learning how to manage your time, learning how to market, learn how to build a sales system. Like some of that stuff you just don't learn from YouTube. Like I am the biggest believer in YouTube University. But there's just some things that you just need to get the answers to. Like, hey, this is how you do it. Like, for example, if I tell you how to set up your own ad campaign and how to manage it and what exactly to look at, it's a lot different than just looking on YouTube video after video on like how to run ads. So I really believe in that, which is why I even took that partnership to begin with. Because if I don't do something I don't believe in, at the end of the day, I still have my business. I don't have to do this. But yeah, going back to the program with the speaking engagement, actually, that is something that I don't think anybody else can offer that. Like, if we were to do this independently, Sam, like if you were to just do this program with Diverting, you or I were to just do it with the Young Sharks, it wouldn't be the same because we are leveraging some of the infrastructure that we both have. So what do I have is I have the platform, I have the people, and I have the ability to put on events. So for the students that are going to be going through that program, we're going to guarantee that you guys will have a guaranteed speaking engagement at the end of it. And speaking will be just being able to improve your public speaking skills and being able to hold your own seminars, being able to sell your product in person is a game changer, especially going into the metaverse. Like where sales are going to switch from one-on-one, you're sitting in front of the prospect and you shake hands, to now you have to sell over a computer screen and whatnot. So that's why we're putting it in there, as a way to apply what you learn. So it's not just like, hey, here's a course and go feed for yourself. It's more like we're gonna teach you the stuff to be able to perform, and this is how we're gonna prove it to the world, right? And how you will prove it to yourself. So we're gonna be doing a speaking engagement included in there and a sponsorship as well. You have anything to add?
Yeah, just wanted to pack. I mean, honestly, we wanted to pack as much value into this as possible. So most courses that you see are online courses, which again you can passively consume. And I think there's a value to that, but being able to interact in person, both with the people you're taking the class with and mentorship and growth. And I'll be there in every single one of these classes in person. We'll have a whiteboard. It'll be a lot of fun. But these sessions are giving you an opportunity to meet people and engage on a deeper level with other people who are growth minded. And so the exercises that we do in these workshops are going to be activity based. And so you're going to be solving problems together. You're going to be brainstorming with others to solve your problems. Well, it's still a guided discussion. I think the value that comes out of it, packing it into an in-person event over 8 weeks, you get an in-person speaking engagement at the end of it to briefly share on stage at a Young Sharks event. You get a certificate in leadership through Divergent You. You'll get a one-on-one consultation with me throughout that as well. You'll get the sponsorship opportunity that Carlos mentioned as well. And for me personally, I think it's $10,000 worth of value based on what we've built and my experience and Carlos's experience and really what you're going to get out of that program. And we're only charging $1,500. So I saw somebody posted a question, is this happening once or are these multiple? We'll be hosting these every 2 months to reset it. Maybe more if we get more demand for it. But personally, I think, as I said before, the best investment you can make is into yourself. I don't know if you'll find a better investment of $1,500 outside of 8 workshops in person, speaking opportunity, leadership certificate, one-on-one consultation, opportunity to be a sponsor at a Young Sharks event. The learning that you'll get in one workshop, in my opinion, will be worth $1,500. But over the course of those 8, you're really going to build a strong, deepen your network, deepen your skills. And again, I think it's the best investment that you could make.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, really, the thing is, it's just such a time. I am a big believer in sometimes you have to put money down in order to be committed. And sometimes that amount needs to be significant enough for you to take it seriously. Because look, I'm not gonna lie, guys, there's a lot of people that signed up for the Young Sharks regular membership and never show up. So if the membership were $3 grand a month, I can guarantee you I will have a lot less members, but nobody is gonna miss a single meeting. It's just that way. And sometimes, like, also someone's time is just valuable. So, I'm really excited about this. It's something really cool. I know, Sam, we were speaking that we're gonna cap it at like 10 people, right? Because they are in person. We're gonna be doing them at the office that we have for the Young Sharks, which is downtown. So yeah, I mean, the conference room that we have for that doesn't even fit, 20, 30 people. So if you guys are interested, just let me know, and we can collaborate, get it going for you. This is something that we need to fill up, and then it's only going to happen every 2 months. So once the enrollment is done, like, it's just done. That's just how it is. It's for whoever wants it, whoever is, hey, I really want to take my business to the next level. I really want to just invest into myself and get some of that knowledge that someone like Sam or myself needs to actually devote our time and just be there in front of you and tell you, look, this is how we did it. I can only speak on what I know, which is marketing, and just getting leads, getting sales calls, all that stuff. Sam obviously has a lot more experience with some of the other stuff that he will be covering on. So if anybody has any questions about that, now would be
Get
a
some
good
of the
time.
date. Yeah, start date on that first one we were aiming is April 12th, right?
I do have a question, actually. Question is, on your opinion, at what stage would this program be valuable as a context for this? Like myself and somebody else who's actually on the channel, but I don't want to say a name in case that person wants to remain anonymous.
Sure.
We've had an idea, and at the moment, we're just on the brainstorming part. So the POC is something that I'm actually probably going to be working on the next month or so. So at the moment, we're pre-POC. So the question is, at what point in the journey do you believe your program might be the most valuable?
At any stage of the journey, I think it's a leadership development program. So it's really working on you as a leader. And then it's going to be giving you the tactics that you can implement from a business standpoint. It's not necessarily a business development accelerator specifically, though there's business elements to it. We wanted to make it something that was accessible to everyone. So it's really focused on leadership development. And it's going to apply that both to the business development, to strategic planning and making decisions, and leading a group, which can be a team management, but it also is leadership. Sales is leadership in some sense. So I would say at any stage of the journey, I think if you've started and you're growing, it's going to help you turn the corner. If you're at the stage where you haven't started yet and you're looking to build, it's going to help you cross the starting line. So it really depends on where you're at, but I think it's accessible either way.
Thank you.
All righty. Good question. I think that was a great question. What time are you guys thinking? Yeah, so Christina answered in the chat. If you guys have any other questions related to that, anything else, we're getting ready to wrap up pretty soon. I mean, we can stay here talking for forever.
Do we want to drop the link to the landing page with the webinar? If anybody wants to check that out, that's going to have more information.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. Yeah, just give me a minute for that. In the meantime, let's see if there's any other questions.
I'm excited. We're going to be announcing this more on the event on the 29th. So we'll be talking about that in person too, if any of you guys are at that event. But to Carlos's point, there is a limited number of seats and it's going to be first come, first serve. So if you guys are interested, I would jump at this because we will very likely sell out all the seats for this program. It will be open again in 2 months, but obviously the sooner you can jump in, the better.
You're saying this at 6 p.m. What day of the week, or when a more specific schedule? So
yeah,
so
Wednesdays
myself and other
starting
people can know
April.
availability.
Yes, starting April 12th. Wednesday, April 12th is the first event, and then every Wednesday on a weekly basis at 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I did drop so basically how it works is Sam put together a webinar where it's like a 30-minute thing. Actually, the poem that you did, Sam, is in that webinar, which is really cool. So definitely check that out, guys. And you can see that webinar so that you see more of like what we would be going into. That's just a little bit of a snippet. Like I said, this does require a lot of time on our end. So, it's something that we definitely need to commit to ourselves to be able to take the time to teach everybody that's going to be going through that program. But check that out. And then if you are serious, again, there's only like 10 spots. So if you are actually serious and you see yourself going through it, then there's a button there that you can click and you can just pay a deposit. And then right after that, I will be in touch with you, either me, Casey, or Kara from the Young Sharks will be in touch with you to just, program the rest of the payments and whatnot. And answer any questions that you have after that. The deposit will be refundable if you actually end up not going through. I think the page says non-refundable, but just letting you guys know, for being on the podcast, taking the time, we would honor that. We don't want to just charge people and not provide any value. And awesome. How do you shortlist people in their leadership workshop? And so Casey was asking, how do you shortlist people? So I'm actually Casey, I'm gonna talk about this. How do you shortlist people to ensure diversity in the leadership workshop? And is there a criteria to join? So I'm gonna let you guys know something that I've learned in business and in sales. So a lot of the times when you have an offer, especially when it comes to running ads, just the way you structure your offer and just the very nature of the product that you're offering will disqualify a lot of people. Just like the people that are not interested in your product are just not interested. They're not, like, let's say you were running an ad. And you say your ad is, like, for example, I'm running ads for the Young Sharks. They say something like, hey, join our mastermind group for young professionals. Whoever sees that ad and is not interested, they're not going to click on it. Who are the people that click on it and end up becoming a lead for me? Is the people that are interested. And for the most part, if you know that you are not within the age range, you will most likely not click on that ad. So 90-something% of the time, most of the people that we actually end up talking to are quote unquote qualified. Now, is there better prospects, better clients, people that are a little bit more ready to go than others? People that are a little bit higher quality in the sense of maybe they're not driving you crazy, or they're just like, we have folks that jump on the calls and honestly waste our time. And then we have other people that jump on the calls and they're like, hey, tell me a little bit more about it. I'm excited. This is what okay, let's do it. So that always happens. People are people at the end of the day. Some of us make decisions a little faster. Some of us are a little bit more cautious. Nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to qualifying people for your offer, for your product, usually most of the heavy lifting will be done with your copywriting, with the way you present it. There's certain words that click with people, that if they know that, hey, I am in that bucket, this is for me, they will take action. But the other people that it doesn't click, they just won't take any action. So applying it to this program, honestly, we don't really need to qualify a lot more. I think the people that are serious and know that this is something that it would benefit them, they will just naturally stand up and take it. It's not forced or anything like that. So it's for those that know that, hey, this is something I need, this is something I want. So, that's just how we went about putting together like an actual educational program outside of what we're already doing and some of the stuff included with the membership that we're doing. So I hope that answers your question, Casey. So if anybody has any more questions.
Sam, I think you were muted. You were saying
My bad,
something.
I just realized that.
I think you're still muted, Sam.
Shoot, there we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, just to speak to the demand, if we do build a high demand and that we sell out the first class, we'll find ways to be able to make this more accessible. I have trained coaches in the past to be able to lead some of the programs that I put together. So I have coaches ready, and I know there's other coaches that could be involved with that too. So as the demand grows, if we do have if we sell out this first one and we have more demand, we can open up more of these in the future as well. But yeah, I'm excited for anybody that's able to do this. If you haven't made that investment into yourself before, I know that can feel like a risk, but I'll say from somebody who's made a lot of those investments and continues to, the more you invest into yourself, the more growth you have. I'm now spending $2,000 a month on a business coach that I work with who's at a higher level than where I'm at. So I think that the more you level up, the more you will invest into yourself because the return is there. And that's obviously the goal of this program, is to help you see the return, not only to return that, but to then get it in more on top of that and build your business on top of that. So that's the goal of the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've definitely invested heavily. I've invested into relationships coach, an ad coach, business coach, courses. I mean, just literally the other day, I just paid someone to help me with stuff. Yeah, I've definitely invested easily at least 20K, over the last year and a half, definitely. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. Sam, do you have any last words of wisdom, any advice, anything to close out?
Yeah, first, I'll just say thank you again for the opportunity, both for the podcast and this program that we're offering. I think this is going to be really beneficial to everybody here at the Young Sharks. In Orlando, I think we're doing something special here, so I'm excited to even be a part of it. Just from an Orlando standpoint, I'm repping Orlando. So thank you guys for having me. And as far as words of wisdom, keep going as a leader. You're the decision maker. So if it comes down to it, when you're making decisions for you, they're your decisions. So don't let somebody else be the source of that decision in some sense. Let it come from you. And as a decision maker and a leader, that's sometimes difficult. So just remember that you are in charge of decisions you make in your life. And that's the biggest asset to you, is yourself and the decisions that you make. So that'll be my last piece of advice.
Yeah, and I will definitely I can just go on into that and keep on the conversation. I see how Joe Rogan can speak for like 3 hours. Like, you could just talk. And I try to be like, ask questions so that, most people get something that they need out of the conversation. But Sam, it's been a pleasure. We're definitely going to see more of you around. We need more people like you, honestly, that are willing to just share what you've learned. So I really appreciate it. I appreciate you for having, joined the Young Sharks before knowing me, before the program, and to just come in with, I am another member and I am here to learn. And we got through this. Obviously, Nicole is a board member. She works with you. So that's how this whole thing started. So Nicole, huge thank you for that. You do great work, I'm sure. And so it's been great, guys. We'll see you in Discord. We'll see you at the events. We have a lot of stuff coming in. Like, it's just honestly way too much. But one day at a time. And yeah, we'll wrap up. Thank you, everyone.